It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for joining our info session on the MBA from Grenoble École de Management, and our topic is Becoming an International Leader. So we'll start today by just quickly introducing ourselves, and then we'll launch into our topic on international leadership and the MBA experience. And then Chandra, our program director, will wrap up by telling you a little bit about the MBA, and then we'll get into our favorite portion of this call, the Q&A. So we ask that throughout our presentation, please feel free to enter any questions you might have directly into the chat. This will be an interactive session, so we'll enjoy your participation. So please engage with us, and we'll be happy to take your comments and your questions. So with that, next slide, please. Okay, I'm Jeannie Hinderscheid, and I am the head of marketing for the MBA and the DBA.
I'm Chandra Dalpon, and I am the MBA director here at Grenoble École de Management.
Hi, I'm Michelle Mealy, senior professor here at Grenoble École de Management.
Hello, I'm Himshikha Datta. I'm a current MBA student, and I'm also a corporate lawyer.
All right. So thanks for your patience. Now that we are all together, we would like to quickly help develop some thinking around what does it mean to do an MBA at Grenoble School of Management, and what kind of skills will you be developing if you would come to our school? What kind of skills do we see developing in our students? So quickly, just to tell you, I've been teaching in the program since 2009. And so I have seen multiple cohorts of MBAs come through, and I've talked to them post-graduation, see what they're doing. As for myself, I have a background from the United States, but very international one, because I've also lived in West Africa, Central America, speak different languages, enjoy very much my anthropological approach to working and managing difference, right? And the discoveries I make from that. I've taught lots of different courses at the School of Management here in Grenoble, and I enjoy our very diverse student bodies, right? So what does it mean, this immersive program, right? When you come to a school and you're going to be living and working every day with people from all over the world, well, it means you're going to exit your comfort zone. You're going to be challenging yourself a lot more with these diverse student bodies. It's going to push you to open your mind and develop more flexibility, what we call cognitive flexibility. It's also going to help you connect with these multilingual constituents, multicultural, diverse people who have different ways of thinking about work. It's also going to push you to learn how to lead a diverse team, how to work inside a diverse team, and how to develop leadership qualities. It's going to also teach you how to be a better team player, because you're going to have to develop new skills for working effectively with people with different approaches and different types of backgrounds. You're also going to be supporting, and this is like a next level development skill, but you're going to learn and want to develop other people too. So part of the process is self-development, but also developing others. And then finally, we're really looking at developing your cultural intelligence, right? So we all know about emotional intelligence, but now we're looking at other forms of intelligence and what we also could call cultural metacognitive ability, which I'll go into. So first question for the audience, you can put in the chat. Do you speak more than one language? So please just put in how many languages you speak. If you speak more than one language, or if you do not, just say, I speak one language. Okay, great. So that's one little activity for you to do for us to know a little bit about you. All right, so what is cultural metacognition, which is an important skill? It's another way of saying cultural intelligence, right? But it's being able to reflect on the assumptions you have, those hypothetical ideas about what is right, wrong, beautiful, nice, and then being able to adapt and learn from culture interactions to revise them, right? So we have to learn how to learn from our assumptions, revise them, and move on, right? So not to get stuck in one way of thinking. Being able to think about ourselves in cultural interactions as well, to try to adapt our behavior, correct our behavior. So second question for the audience, again, go to your chat. Have you lived or worked abroad? Work can be work study or study abroad, but it's different than traveling, right? Have you actually lived abroad for any longer period of time or worked in other countries? Have you accompanied your family as expatriates or other? All right. So second question for you to tell us about yourselves. So again, let's go to this idea of CQ. It's this ability to learn and to revise the mental models you have about what's normal, about cultural norms. And this is across different countries or national cultures. This is also through groups of people or collectives, right? So those with a high metacognitive CQ are more aware of other people's preferences before and during cultural interactions. They also question their own cultural beliefs, assumptions, and attitudes, and they adjust their mental models during and after these interactions. So even though that sounds a little complicated, it just means you become more flexible about the way you will see other people's attitudes and behaviors. And instead of them being weird, strange, or irritating, they become something that you become more flexible with managing. Okay, so again, another question linked to this. So we've asked you now, what languages you speak? Have you lived abroad? And the third is, have you ever worked in a diverse global team? This could be for work or for student work, but a diverse team means people who speak different languages, different national cultures, different backgrounds. So they have cognitive diversity too, right? So that's the next question you can answer in the chat, all right? So just briefly, what is cerebral flexibility? Well, we're not neuroscientists in business schools, but we certainly are interested in advances in neuroscience to understand what's actually happening. And so what we do understand is that the neurons in your brain form pathways. Those pathways become very tight and the neurons become tightly connected. And the idea is to loosen the connections, to allow your brain to form new pathways, new ways of learning, new ways of thinking about what is normal, what is good, what is culturally acceptable or not. Now, this flexibility is important. Sometimes we call it EQ. I call it CQ, cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence, but it's the ability to revise your attitudes and ideas. And so basically, it leads us to being more open-minded, right? As you can see, if you think the same old way, you're not going to change. But how do you change? So one thing you can do is do a study abroad, study in a diverse group, work with people who are different than you, who have very different ideas from you, and it will push you hard to open your mind and change this way of thinking. Very simply put, open-mindedness is an intellectual virtue, right? It's an ideal that we all want to have, but we don't always know how to do it because it's hard when someone's ideas conflict with ours. It also is a form of inquiry that means we're ready to seriously change the way we're thinking about our interpretations and maybe revise our ideas. It sounds good, but in practice, for any of you who have had arguments with your aunt or uncle over the dinner table and you wanted to disagree with them, you realize how hard it is and how emotional it can be when we're dealing with people who have different ideas, right? So let's think about this in terms of Socrates, who's someone we can study. You know, even though a 4th century BC thinker had something to tell us, you know that Buddha was living during the same period as was Confucius. These great thinkers told us some things about virtue that we need to remember today. So we need to let ourselves go where the argument takes us and not resist. We have to follow what people are saying to try to understand. We should also be acutely conscious at all times of our own ignorance. And as you know, Socrates said famously, the true wisdom is knowing that we know nothing. And so this idea of ignorance is a foundation of being ready to learn. So if you do an MBA, or if you do any kind of graduate study in business, you will be pushed to get out of your echo chamber, which we find ourselves in often in social media landscapes, right? And that's really important, not only for being a better manager, better educated person, but also being a better citizen, right? I mean, my goal as an educator is to develop better citizens and better people, and to think with you about how we're all in this process of developing better open-minded abilities. So Remember, as a summary, to follow the argument is to be prepared to accept whatever results from the inquiry. We have to be prepared to accept inconvenient things that we learn in the process about ourselves, about our culture, about things that we believe to be true, but they got challenged. We have to follow the argument, and we don't distort it to make it support the beliefs we already favor, otherwise known as confirmation bias, right? We have to be ready to learn new ways of thinking. And we don't try to explain away unwanted conclusions. We accept them. So with that, I will now conclude my little ideas here that I wanted to share, coming from what we teach the MBAs, but also what we know from all of the program we are trying to give our students as professors and people involved in MBA education. So now I will hand over the floor to Himshika Dutta, who will tell you a little bit about herself as a student in the program.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. It was really like a tiny journey back to your classes. And so I'm Himshika. I'm from India. Before coming to the MBA, I did my law degree. I worked in Ernst& Young for a couple of years. Uh, my main reason to do the MBA was because I wanted to move to Europe. And though I have worked in a multicultural team, it was never a first-hand experience. And I thought that the MBA would really give me an exposure to be ready for the European market. And truly, it has been nothing but true. Now I proudly say to my friends back home that I can understand accent from anywhere. We have seven nationalities in our class, and we have professors coming from all across the globe. And as Michelle was saying, there has been time where it was really challenging for my mental model because I come from India and I was there till a very long period of my life in a certain environment. So many things were not. I did not understand it at first, like why or how this happens. But it was, as Michelle said, like challenging my mental model, understanding different culture, and understanding different environment or places people come from. And I think that has been like really a great takeaway from the MBA for me. And yeah, so I think I can talk more if we open the floor for any more questions or other stuff. I'll hand it over to Chandra for now.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Shika.
So
Thank
I just
you.
want to, before we move on to Chandra, I thought it'd be nice if we look at some of the answers in the chat to your questions, Michelle.
Super.
We have people from all over the world speaking lots of different languages. We see yeah, 2 languages, 4 languages, 3 languages. People
Wow.
who have actually worked abroad already, some who haven't yet, but are looking to this international MBA to work abroad. So thank you everybody for sharing your answers. All
Great.
right, and
Thank
with that,
you.
Chandra.
Yeah, so no, I just wanted to make a comment too, because, obviously I was in the program as well. Michelle was actually my teacher. So I'm an alumni as well of the program. And so I went through that whole process as well, being an American actually living in France and integrating into, even though I thought I came from a multicultural background, being immersed in another country was actually quite different, because even though I had been surrounded growing up by different cultures, it was quite different being in another culture, because I think that's actually the real experience, and having to work together as a collaborative team and understanding the other viewpoints, other ways of working, other expectations. And it's true that I think coming in with multiple languages also provides you that mental elasticity that is very, very important if you're going to be thinking about working, outside your box, outside that comfort zone, outside, just a small national company. When you're thinking about working in an international realm, that's really important. And so it's true that Michelle kind of helped us bridge that understanding between, where we were and being kind of, I would say, closed-minded. You don't even realize how closed-minded you can be until you've been put in a situation where you're confronted with, it's not a they're wrong and I'm right or vice versa. It's really about everyone comes from a different way of thinking, and being able to start to open your mind to the different ways different people think. It goes beyond just working with people culturally. It's also about being able to be flexible and being empathetic, and that level of empathy also helps you to think in a business sense as well, being able to say, I'm going to put myself in somebody else's shoes in a different company. How do my competitors think? How do my clients think? And not think, well, they're wrong, but actually thinking about, if I put myself in their shoes, how would I, so there's not a right and wrong. There's really that mental elasticity and that openness and that importance, that focus on dialogue, discussion, digging deeper, going beyond that initial kind of shock or resistance, and being open to the discussion, being open to thinking beyond what you imagine is the black or the white, and there's so much variation. And I know, Shika, just like you, I was in a nice group of, a lot of different nationalities at the time, and we're all still very, very good friends, and we're all still in contact and wish each other happy birthdays and invite each other to different places and take photos. And when we're traveling somewhere else in the world, there's always kind of somebody around that we can, go visit and so on. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that, and definitely that reverberates with me as well as an alumni. But now as a director, I find that that's so central and so focused that it's actually the class that we start with, because we want to start with that mental agility and that cultural flexibility and that open-mindedness, and how are we going to work together on our projects going forward, and how are we going to maybe get beyond that resistance, because you're working in an intercultural group. I know Shika's been changing with every class, different groups in every class, and having to work with you don't have the choice.
And exactly. And if you don't have conflict, there's a problem. You should have conflict, because it's a year to practice making mistakes, getting in difficulties, right? And this is a year to simulate. Like, the MBA is an opportunity to learn by doing, and to have conflicts means you have to find solutions, and it's a great opportunity to do that, right? To get to know different ways of, even problem solving, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Shika, what were you going to say?
No, I totally agree. Like, being with different teams for every subject is like, sometimes I want to be like, okay, I don't want to change team. I want to be in the same group, but of course we're pushed to do it. And I think, yeah, it's had been a really interesting learning so far, and I feel I'm ready to like take on any teamworks going forward if I have gone through this. So yeah, but Chandra, as you were saying that Michelle's class in the beginning, I think we had your class like right after we started, was really important, because when we come here, all of us comes with several years of experience, and we come with kind of a static model like to be here, and we are already professionals. And so I think Michelle's class really opened the ground for us to be more resilient and more open minded, and it really helped us to just take a step back and
Yeah.
think over, like, before making judgments or making our own decisions. So I think, yeah, like, introduction to that course in the beginning, I think, has been really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly right. It's just taking that step back and being able to, before you react, instead of kind of being reactive, being reflective. And so that
Yeah.
allows you kind of that, hold on, take a breath, and maybe, just maybe, this is just a cultural thing. And it's not offensive, and people aren't trying to be offensive, or people this is the way that they work, and how can we bring that together, because we can't impose. And I think this is a good it's a good reflection of the MBA as a representation of work in general. If you're going to be working in intercultural and international company, is you don't always have the choice of who you're going to be working with. You're going to have different cultures that work in different ways, and you have to be able to, before you get angry or before you say, okay, this isn't going to work, you have to think, okay, take a step back, and then how can we make it work? So I think it is kind of a nice trial period, and yeah, we fail, and yeah, we succeed, and yeah, we do our best, and we work together, and but in general, that's my job too as the MBA director, is to say, okay, but what is your solution? So it's not, I'm the manager, I'm going to fix everything, and that's all. Hopefully, what you're all thinking when you come into the MBA and afterwards is not, I'm the manager, I'm going to fix it, but how can I facilitate the fixing internally? So I usually put the question back on the people, what would you do? And And what is your opinion? What is your view on this? And can you try before I jump in to resolve the situation? Good.
All right, so thank you. This is a lot of engaging reasons for why to do your MBA abroad.
So speaking of,
yeah. So Chandra, why don't you just wrap up for us, like, or summarize the GEM MBA?
okay, that's easy. 10 months of insanity. No, it's Shika can probably attest to that. No, it is. It's a very intensive program, and but I think that's good. You know, it's really a period where you're going to be coming in with preconceived notions and this vision of who you are, and I think it's going to grow and change and adapt. And I think that's really important in the process. So the reason that you would want to come to GEM specifically is a lot of the fact that, of course, we're a top ranked school. We're in the top 10 in France. We're on Financial Times 100, QS, etc. We have triple accreditation, which really means that we're going to be following quality standards, and we are held up to a much higher bar. We have the French master's certification as well, which is very important to have an official master's in France. It helps you also if you want to move on from there to do a PhD or work in the public sector or work in Europe to get a visa in Europe and things like that. It can be important to make sure that you're actually doing a real master's from within Europe, especially and from within France. But one of the things that I think differentiates us is really our ecosystem, and I think that it aligns with our values. And I know Shika is very much interested in sustainability, and you know, I really try to support her in going in that direction. I think the school is really trying to make that effort as well. Just like with any company, it's a challenge because you know, you have your bottom line, and you also are trying to make progress towards the future in, you know, sustainable fashion. And that's kind of, we do it step by step and iteration. We go back to the beginning, we have to change things and so on. But our ecosystem is very much a mirror of us. You know, we are a school that was founded by the Chamber of Commerce. We're business oriented, of course, but the MBA itself was founded based on a request from IBM at the period at that time. If that resonates, the word IBM with anyone, but it was really based on a request to support e-commerce back when the MBA was launched in 2000 for GEM. So aside from tech, we're also the green capital of Europe here in Grenoble itself. So Grenoble is the green capital. So it's kind of this innovation hub. We have Vercor, which is electric vehicle battery production. We have nanotechnology. We have deep tech. I mean, there's a lot of tech in the area, but of course also green. And I think you can't talk about strategy without those two things really playing an important role in the development of where we're going in any sector. So I think that's key. And that really makes a difference because it's in the way that we think and the way that we want to grow as a school and the way that we want to foster your growth as MBA candidates. And to do that, we really want to put in place experiential learning. So at the moment, this photo here was taken, Shika was there as well. We're launching a live business case with BD. BD is a pharmaceutical delivery system company based in the US, or its headquarters in the US, but it has a French headquarters here in the area. I think it has like 2,500 employees. So it has the CEO and the headquarters here in France in Grenoble. And so we've launched a live business case, and we do a lot of this mini live business case or case studies or experiential learning. We go visit a lot of companies. We have guest speakers from the local ecosystem or abroad, in fact, which brings us to actually one of the other points here, which is one of our study trips, which we're going to be leaving on Sunday. Shika going to Berlin, yay! To focus on digital transformation. And that is going to be 15 hours of study in Berlin, plus company visits. We're going to be visiting companies like Deutsche Bahn, which is the railway system in Germany. We're going to be visiting SAP. We're going to be visiting a 3D printing company. We have guest speakers from, and also to visit Accenture. We have visitors coming to speak to us from a variety of consulting companies for digital transformation, as well as people, for example, AXA in their digital transformation, generative AI, and AI for healthcare, and Bosch Digital. So a lot of talking about transformations, the challenges, the tech startup ecosystem in Berlin, etc. Going to a generative AI conference on Wednesday evening, meeting alumni, etc. So a lot of this has to be integrated into your MBA to make the experience worthwhile. It's not just the networking, but it's about the opportunity, and you never know when you're going to be inspired. So I think that's important. I think that's enough for now. I won't go too much deeper in that, but I think, as Shika said, it's very international, not just in the students who are here in the MBA, but also in, as she said, the professors who could be from anywhere, could be from Lebanon, could be from Brazil, could be from the US or Canada or Germany or pretty much anywhere in the world. So it's very interesting to have their insight as well, as professors, China, Russia, etc. So anyway, so that's a little wrap up about the school. And I'll let Jenny take it away from there if you want more information.
Great. Thank you very much, Chandra, and thank you, everyone. So to find out more about the program, we've got some information on our website. Also, next slide, please. And we also have, local GEM staff in your region who is happy to help you and answer specifically some local questions you might have as well. And of course, we are all available to answer any of your questions. Chandra here is happy to speak with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find the contact information as well to people locally in your region who can help you. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have about the MBA. So with that, we will get to the Q&A section of our webinar. So you're welcome to type your questions directly into the chat, or if you want, just raise your hand and I will unmute the mics, and you're welcome to just ask your questions. So I unmute the mics right now. In the meantime, we have a question. It says, why, I guess we're talking about the companies that we work with. It says, why not SNCF? They're the best rail company in the EU.
Could be. It's having been a user for a long time. They're definitely not bad. Actually, we are lucky to have SNCF and an amazing rail system here in France, which is easy. We get up to Paris in 3 hours direct. I know Shika did her specialization. If you have any questions about that as well, those are always interesting questions to talk about. She did her specialization in Paris in luxury, which is basically product marketing and brand management in the luxury sector, which is in the sustainable transition. So it's a sector that's really in transition. And a lot of people, of course, take the train. We don't fly up there. We try and be sustainable also, but it's also just so convenient. It's a 3-hour trip, direct, not even. So it's true that we do. My interest in Deutsche Bahn was actually because we're physically going to be in Berlin. So the question was, what companies did we want to work with? And actually, digital is very important for all different sectors. And it's important to think not just consulting companies like Accenture or Bosch Digital or PwC, what are the consulting, but also what companies are being impacted and how is digital impacting companies that you wouldn't even think about are impacting, including the railway systems. So it's not that we don't want to work with SNCF. Actually, GEM works very much with SNCF in executive trainings, and we have given a lot of trainings professionally to managers of SNCF. So perhaps that's why they're amazing. I don't know. I didn't say that. I won't vouch, but anything is possible. But no, it's not we don't want to go. It's just that we want to visit other companies and get a different viewpoint from Deutsche Bahn.
All right. So our next question is the selection process. I think a lot of the information can be found on our website. So what English test scores, CV, etc. So we won't repeat information you can just find on our website. But Chandra, maybe this is a good question and even Michelle, also who teaches on the MBA, tell us about the typical GEM MBA student.
Ooh, can I start and then you can rebound? Because
Sure.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say that what I think is really important is that you come in curious. You come in with a lot of energy because it is definitely an engagement. And I always say that when I'm doing an interview, it's really a two-way interview. I want to know more about you, but I hope that you would want to know more about the fit with us. And I think that the alignment in between our values and your goals is very, very important. And I think that being someone who is willing to collaborate, because I think that's what we're trying to find is future leaders who don't want to be just CEO because CEO is a power play, but they want to be leaders because they want to make an impact and they want to change. So we want change leaders. That's basically the title of the new MBA. Who, like I say, they want to innovate and they want to provide solutions for the team. They want to support their teams. They want to drive change. So I would say that was one important thing. But perhaps Michelle and Shika, you want to think of some other ideas.
I would just add to that. I totally agree with what Chandra just said. I would just add that also people need to come in with a kind of a minimal professional experience, right? Because it's you hit the ground running. You actually are doing live business cases for almost all your classes or case studies that are really intense. So there's so many different configurations for you to mobilize what you've already learned in the workplace. So you need to come in to be with like-minded professionals who also, and a lot of the people are impressive. They've done some of them pretty high-level work. But I think another commonality would be they're not just doing the MBA so they can have a salary increase afterwards. That's one of the concerns. Of course, it's an investment of your time and your efforts, but it's also like people who say, well, I leave this with a better idea of how I can actually do better work out there in the world. And what I learned in France is a really interesting, it's an intermediary space for me as a stepping stone in my professional trajectory where I actually learned these skills that are not only European, but that are international. So I'm in France, but I'm actually doing a program in English. I'm hearing people speak maybe Arabic next to me, or they're speaking Telugu in the other corner of the classroom, or German. And I'm having to, I'm really leaving, like, so I think you have to come in with that kind of curiosity and having your glass half full, saying I've got a lot to learn still. I'm halfway there, but this is going to be my moment of humility to learn what I don't know. Right.
Yeah, I think
Great.
just adding to what Chandra and Michelle said, it's really also about to be ready to push the limits because as Chandra, you said, it's really an intense course. So it's not going to be like that we come here and we're just chilling. It's really not like that. So to be ready to really push your limits and question our beliefs and learnings is something that I think an MBA student who's coming to GEM should be ready with. And the other thing is also the basic professional knowledge like Excel, finance, a little bit, and everything. That's really important because everyone comes from very diverse professional background, and the class like picks up pace very fast. So it's really important that we come with the basic professional knowledge.
Yeah, and I would even add to that. I mean, being perhaps coming from the American yes you can mentality and the background where we don't have to have a degree that necessarily is completely in line with exactly what we're going to do. I mean, I have a psychology degree and I went into private wealth management. And so I had the ability, the agility to think kind of both sides of my brain. And even though my diploma was in psychology, like I say, I was able to do fairly well on the analytical side, on the strategic side. And so you don't have to have necessarily that background in specific quantifiable sectors, but you should be able to adapt because this is a balance course where you do have to use both sides of your brain because strategy, you have to do the analysis, but you also have to be kind of a people person and a leader. So you've got to have both sides of those soft skill, hard skill, um, I think in general. But I mean, we just had a graduate who was a symphony violinist, actually, and now she works at ST Microelectronics. you know, in the CSR sector. And so you have to have that ability, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was on paper. When I speak to you in the interview, I try and pull that out of people as well to see that kind of capacity. So it's on paper, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful in a direction, and the other way around. It could be that you don't have it on paper, but you definitely have the capacity to do it. So I would say the door isn't closed, but you have to be able to kind of prove that or talk about it in your interview.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add one very simple thing, which is like it's not about like maybe your previous educational experiences were more about like learning by rote or in a very top-down environment where you're expecting like the professors to tell you what to do and think, but not in the MBA, as I'm sure Himshika can affirm. It's really about you having your own opinions, developing your own approaches, your own ethical, philosophical, managerial, operational approaches that are based on your background and on your preferences. And so it's really about like developing creative approaches and not repeating what you've learned, because it's very it's a transversal flat classroom. Professors want you to be very interactive and they give you a lot of floor time. And so you do a lot of like, you are responsible, for example, in my class for part of the content. It's a flipped classroom, and I'm not the only one that does this. I know a lot of my colleagues, it's learning by doing. We want managers to be good at pedagogy. Like, how do you get people to listen to you? How do you develop skills, or oratory skills, rhetorical skills that will allow you to be heard? If you're a woman, how do you learn to speak so that you won't be interrupted? Right? With confidence. So we're pushing you to develop those skills so you cannot come in passive. So I'd say that adopting a very active learning approach and being ready to debate, even with your professors.
Excellent. Sounds exciting. So we have a question. Is September 2024 intake still open to international students? It definitely is. We do encourage international students to apply early, just to, because it does take more, right? Getting your visa, getting set up. But we do have resources internally to help our international students. The MBA, as Chandra, just explained, is comprised of a very international cohort. But we do encourage you to register early so you can take advantage of a lot of the resources that we have available for you. And do we have any other questions? If you'd like, you're welcome to just raise your hand or jump on in the call if you would rather than type as well.
And maybe I just have one more thing too. And I think what is important, we were talking about the female male, balance at the moment. It's like a 50-50 in our program, which I think is really nice. I think it allows more of an equal playing field, where if you're not outnumbered, I think you do feel like you have more of a place to speak. And I think people come in more as equals because you're all students, and it doesn't matter what your background is. That you have the equal opportunity to debate, to talk to your teachers, to make a presentation, to to participate equally, and that just because you have a specific role back home doesn't mean that that is your role here, because your role is part of a collaborative team, and you are expected to bring an equal amount of input and an equal amount of debate. And what's very nice with the size of our classes is that you have personal time with people like Michelle, which is amazing, to be able to spend that kind of time, and just to email her and she'll email you back, as long as she's not traveling in Georgia for another program or something like that. Right. But I think they're very reactive and they're very supportive of our students, and a lot of them are tutors for your thesis, and so you do create kind of a long-lasting bond with them.
Yeah,
When
and we learn about you. So we're like, well, what do you want? We see what people want to do, and so we want you to find work, obviously. So we're thinking about that too. I mean, I'll say one more thing that you just brought up, Chandra, which is that it's true that another thing that I would add to what you just said is that when you're in the MBA classroom, there's so many nationalities, and you learn about how your culture will be stereotyped. You will receive stereotypes. This is natural. across the world, wherever you go, there's a stereotype about your country. So it's an opportunity to also learn what they are if you don't know, and then to develop rhetorical strategies for managing that, right? Because people are learning, and because they're ignorant, as Socrates told us, right? They're also making comments that could be insensitive or slightly aggressive to you. So it's also kind of learning how to not be, to kind of take the emotion out of these kind of intercultural and kind of loaded emotional exchanges where people, will actually learn about your culture. So it's like if you take the emotion out and we're able to kind of like deal with that, we learn so much about ourselves. It's not only learning about the others and what their particularities are, but it's also learning about us. And really, as an American who lived in France and other countries, dealing with a lot of those stereotypes was hard and made me often kind of angry. And so I had to learn over time to kind of laugh about it because it's actually kind of funny, because it just means people don't know. They haven't been to your country, they don't know. So you're also kind of an ambassador for your country as a way. It's an interesting role. So I don't know. I think Shika probably. I remember that you're from Assam. That's what I do remember. So I learned from
Yeah.
you that you're from the place where they grow wonderful tea, because I don't think we've had a student from that region in recent memory.